Have you ever felt like your life suddenly turned dark, as if everything keeps falling apart even though you haven't done anything wrong? Recurring nightmares, an eerie chill in the middle of the night, or an unexplainable streak of bad luck. These things might not be mere coincidences. There are unseen forces that others can intentionally summon to destroy your life. In today's video, we're going to break down 5 warning signs that you may be the target of a particularly dangerous form of dark energy. This isn't about superstition, but rather a perspective that blends spirituality, culture, and psychology, meant for reflection and reference, fully respecting fair use. If you feel this topic is important, be sure to follow the channel, because at the end of the video, I'll be sharing a method to cleanse your spirit so you can protect yourself from these unpredictable negative influences. Some things happen so repeatedly that you can no longer call them coincidences. A familiar shadow passing by where you stand, the feeling of being watched even when you're completely alone, or the sudden heaviness in a room, as if something unseen is lurking. These aren't just feelings, they could be warnings. In the next part, you'll discover the first sign that a dark force may have been sent your way. Stay focused, every detail might hold the key to protecting yourself. You try to stay positive, but every effort seems to disappear into a cold void. You're losing sleep, feeling lost, and the people who were once close to you suddenly become distant, or even turn against you without reason. This isn't just a streak of bad luck. It could be the result of a dark entity attaching itself to you, summoned by jealousy, hatred, or even through some unseen ritual. In the next part, I'll reveal the first sign, clear and haunting, that you should never ignore. Chaos seems to have become a regular guest in your home. Items go missing and then suddenly reappear in strange places, electronic devices flicker or malfunction for no reason, and a creeping sense of unease fills every breath you take. When a dark entity decides to camp out in your life, it doesn't knock. It walks right in, claiming your space, your energy, and your peace. In the next part, I'll share a subtle but extremely dangerous sign, one that most people overlook. But when misfortune becomes a cycle, repeating with growing intensity, as if an invisible hand is constantly pulling you toward the abyss, it's no longer a coincidence. It's the first signal from the unseen world that something is interfering with your energy field. Plans fall apart at the last minute, your finances drain for no clear reason, and everything you touch seems to turn to dust. In the next part, I'll help you recognize the difference between natural bad luck and misfortune that's been sent your way. When a dark entity has been sent to you, life begins to spiral out of balance in ways that logic simply can't explain. You're not just tired, you're exhausted down to your soul. Carefully planned projects suddenly collapse. Everything you touch turns into a problem. And you start asking yourself, what did I do wrong? But that's the key, you didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes, the only mistake you made was being too strong, too independent, or daring to say no to someone who isn't used to being denied. In the spiritual realm, refusing a request, especially from someone who is manipulative or who dabbles in mystical energies, can sometimes trigger a wave of rage. And that rage, when combined with even a shallow or reckless understanding of ritual, can become what is known as a targeted spiritual attack. In other words, someone may have intentionally sent a negative entity your way, with the goal of weakening you, derailing your path, and draining your life force. The clearest sign lies not just in the frequency of misfortunes, but in their deliberate structure. You might notice you lose money exactly when you need it most. A project you've worked on for weeks suddenly crashes due to technical issues. Soon after, you begin to suffer from insomnia, your immune system weakens, and your home appliances start acting up all at once. These events are not random, they're timed, targeted, and seem almost orchestrated to strike at your most vulnerable points. It all leads to one chilling conclusion: you may be under a coordinated campaign meant to destroy your stability. And then you begin to doubt yourself. Am I overreacting? But your intuition is not wrong. Once dark energy has been invited in, it knows how to plant doubt and panic. It doesn't just hurt you externally, it tries to break your inner trust so you no longer have the strength to resist. So what can you do? Don't ignore the signs. Don't rationalize everything just to feel normal. In the next part, I'll show you how to identify who may have sent this entity, how to sever the negative energy link, and most importantly, how to cleanse your spirit using methods that honor your personal spiritual beliefs. Keep watching until the end, because sometimes the right knowledge at the right moment can save a soul that's under siege. When a dark entity is directed toward you, it doesn't just attack your surroundings. It begins to seep into you, like a colorless, scentless poison that slowly paralyzes your spirit. You might sense that something is off, yet find no words to describe it. And that's exactly the nature of this kind of attack. It disconnects you from yourself. You feel unexplainable exhaustion, a heaviness, as if you're carrying an invisible weight on your shoulders. A deep sense of disconnection, even in your own home. I've received hundreds of stories like this. And most of them begin with a whisper, "I don't know how to explain this," but you don't need to explain it with words. Your soul already knows. Something is draining your life force bit by bit. Vague symptoms, insomnia, loss of appetite, recurring nightmares, are signs of an unseen intrusion. Modern medicine won't find the cause, because the root lies beyond the physical. One woman once shared with me how she began to feel watched inside her own home. Small objects seemed to move on their own. Lights flickered for no reason. A coldness filled the air at strange hours, and the most disturbing part? It all began after a heated conflict with someone who had threatened her, not through overt violence, but with a strange look and cryptic words. She tried everything, medical checkups, prayer, meditation, but nothing worked until she began using spiritual cleansing rituals aligned with her personal faith. That's when things slowly began to calm. And that's the crucial point many overlook. You cannot heal a spiritual wound with physical solutions. When you're under attack by a negative entity, the first and most important step is recognition. No denial. No rationalization. No telling yourself, "It'll pass." No, it won't pass unless you act. That entity won't leave on its own. It must be confronted with light, with pure energy, and with your active commitment to protect your inner self. The good news is, you absolutely can do this. You can reclaim sovereignty over your spiritual space. In the next part, I'll guide you through effective cleansing methods. You won't have to change your beliefs, just understand them more deeply and act at the right time. Stay with me until the end of this journey, because it might just be the first step toward breaking free from the invisible force that's been holding you down for far too long. And if you're feeling those symptoms, unexplained fatigue, a mind drifting like it's lost in fog, dark thoughts creeping in uninvited, you need to understand this. This is no longer a coincidence. This is a battle, not fought with swords or weapons, but with willpower, awareness, and your spiritual energy. The truth is, most people are never taught how to protect themselves from these invisible attacks. We're taught how to prevent the flu, how to keep our hearts healthy, but no one ever teaches us how to shield our minds from deliberate spiritual intrusions. Negative entities, whatever you may call them based on your beliefs, don't just disrupt your peace. They infiltrate you slowly, making you question yourself. They plant a terrifying thought in your mind. What if these horrible things really are my fault? From that seed of doubt, they begin to take over layer by layer, through guilt, through fear, through a fog so dense that you can no longer tell which feelings are truly yours and which are being manipulated from the outside. I've seen it happen to people who were once strong, clear-minded, gradually become fragile, simply because they didn't know they were under attack. One man told me he began hearing whispers when alone, not loud voices, but faint echoes that seemed to ring inside his own mind. He went for mental health evaluations. Everything came back normal. So why did he feel like pieces of himself were being stolen, bit by bit? The answer only revealed itself when he realized that all of it began after a vicious argument with someone who had coldly said to him, "You won't have peace anymore." You see, these entities don't arrive by chance. They are often summoned through envy, rage, hatred, or misguided spiritual rituals. And the danger is, they don't have to be physically present in your room to do harm. All they need is a crack, a fracture in your spiritual energy to slip in and take root. That's why recognizing and sealing that crack is vital. In the next part, I'll share how you can begin to do exactly that. You won't need to abandon your faith. You won't need to step into a world that feels foreign or uncomfortable. You'll start from exactly where you are. But remember this. Healing doesn't come from avoidance. It comes from the courage to look directly into the darkness and declare to it that you will not bow. Signs like flickering lights, strange noises in the middle of the night, or the sensation that someone is standing behind you when you're alone, don't be so quick to dismiss them as imagination. These seemingly harmless occurrences are often the first warnings of an intrusion happening within your living space. And the most frightening part? It doesn't come from the physical world you can see. It comes from another layer of reality, a deeper dimension where energy vibrates at lower frequencies, where negative entities can hide and influence your world without you even knowing. Your home, once a place of peace and refuge from the chaos outside, might now be the very place that drains you the most. Have you ever walked into a room and suddenly felt exhausted for no clear reason? Or noticed there are areas you subconsciously avoid, not because they're inconvenient, but because they just don't feel right? That's not a coincidence. That's your body and soul responding subtly, signaling an energetic imbalance. When a negative entity resides in your environment, it distorts the electromagnetic field around you. This is why electronic devices might behave strangely, or why your pets may suddenly become fearful or alert. One person once told me that every time they passed the hallway leading to the bedroom, the lights would flicker. And their dog, a normally fearless animal, would stop, growl, and then back away. They called in electricians, replaced the lights, yet the issue remained. It wasn't until they began cleansing the energy in the home, through prayer, sound purification, or protective rituals, that the disturbances began to fade. That wasn't magic. That was the power of reclaiming your space. What you need to understand is this. These signs do not exist to scare you, they exist to wake you up. When a presence begins to extend beyond your inner state and manifests into your physical surroundings, that's your cue to act. Not with panic, but with awareness. These things are not meant to make you feel powerless, but to remind you of your right to set boundaries. To declare no to any presence that was never invited. In the next section, I'll show you how to cleanse and protect your space, in a way that's natural, safe, and aligned with your beliefs and culture. But for now, remember this. If something in your home doesn't feel right, that intuition is worth listening to. The sense of unease at 3 a.m., when the light is dim and the air feels dense, is a significant one to pay attention to. Do you ever feel like someone is standing nearby, even though you're alone in the room? This isn't just imagination. During this time, known as the witching hour, the boundary between the physical world and the spirit world becomes thin. Spiritual entities, especially negative energies, often try to slip through this fragile barrier. And you may feel their presence. Your body reacts naturally, your heartbeat quickens, cold sweat appears, and sometimes a sensation of suffocation, as though an invisible force is pressing down on you from all sides. These signs are not coincidences. If you regularly wake up around this time and feel like you're being watched, it's a clear indicator that some external intervention is invading your space. But don't panic. Recognizing these signs is the first step in protecting yourself. The key is to never ignore your intuition. Don't let fear overwhelm you. Face the reality of what is happening in your life. And if you're wondering if there's a way to check for the presence of these negative energies, there is a simple method you can try immediately. Place sea salt in the corners of the room, especially in places where you feel the most disturbance. Sea salt, with its powerful purifying properties, is a natural way to protect your living space from negative entities. Pure light entities, which cause no harm, won't be affected, but negative and mischievous entities won't be able to tolerate the purifying effect of the salt. If the phenomenon disappears or diminishes after you try this method, you'll have confirmation that your space was indeed invaded by harmful energy. This is the moment for you to take control of your living space. Don't let any negative energy invade and weaken your spirit. Once you've recognized their presence, you can begin to use natural protection methods like sea salt, sound cleansing, or even prayer to create a strong protective layer for your mind and body. Remember, you have the right to control your space and push back against any unwelcome energies. When an invisible force intrudes into your life, it not only threatens your mental or physical health but also attacks the most important foundations of your life, your relationships. Family, friends, and colleagues are what sustain your emotional balance and mental strength throughout your journey. However, when a malevolent entity invades your space, the first sign will be the weakening of these connections. Ruthlessly and strategically, the entity does not just harm you directly, but it also seeks to isolate you from those around you. Gradually, it pushes you into a state of loneliness, vulnerability, and a lack of emotional support. This is one of the most dangerous signs because the breakdown of social relationships does not just happen suddenly. It creates conflicts that are hard to explain. You might notice that simple conversations suddenly become tense. Arguments with loved ones escalate without any valid reason. Issues that didn't affect you before now become significant sources of conflict. It feels as if you are saying things you never intended to, and intense emotions unexpectedly surge, seemingly uncontrollable. You wonder why something small can make you lose your composure so easily. This is the intervention of negative energy, where the malevolent entity not only invades your space but also influences how you interact with others. It draws you into an invisible battle, where you become a victim of your own emotions and thoughts. These arguments, which might seem harmless, gradually weaken your mental defense system. They distance you from those you love and need the most to maintain balance in your life. So how do you cope with this? The key here is awareness and action. When you notice changes in your relationships, whether they are small conflicts or a sudden feeling of alienation, this is the first sign of negative interference. Acknowledging this is the first step in protecting yourself from the invasion of malevolent forces. Create protective measures like meditation, prayer, or using space-clearing methods to cleanse the energy around you. Only when you actively confront these signs can you restore your relationships and protect yourself from invisible attacks. When you begin to notice a change in how those around you treat you, it's not just a sign of conflict in your relationships. It could be a sign that an invisible force is intervening in your life. Close friends suddenly stop reaching out, family members become irritated and misunderstand you, and all the conversations that were once filled with closeness turn into conflicts. Misunderstandings remain unresolved, and relationships that once seemed strong begin to crumble, leaving you feeling increasingly isolated. This is not a coincidence. It is a strategically orchestrated process that makes it hard for you to recognize the manipulation immediately. Isolation is the most dangerous weapon of negative entities. When you are separated from your support system, those who are always ready to help and protect you, you become more vulnerable than ever. Your mental environment will shrink, and you will lack the objective perspectives that could help you identify the danger you're facing. Malevolent entities not only threaten you directly, but they also aim to break down your mental defenses by creating division in important relationships. As misunderstandings pile up, every relationship becomes tense and full of conflict, and you may no longer recognize yourself in the reactions and behaviors of others. They will begin to say that you are not the same as before, that something is wrong with you. These invisible changes in your relationships are the clearest signs of outside interference. What's concerning is that these changes are not easy to spot because they often happen gradually, like a wolf disguised as a sheep. The malevolent entities take advantage of small emotions in relationships, such as unresolved grievances, unspoken jealousy, or hidden pain, and amplify them irrationally. They blow small issues into major conflicts and create ambiguity about who you truly are. You might begin to feel unloved, unaccepted, and even like you're no longer yourself. However, the important thing is to recognize that these changes are not natural. They are the result of a strong external influence. Don't lose hope. If you recognize these signs, it's time for you to stand up and protect yourself. While these signs are concerning, they are also a warning that you can still control your life. External interference cannot persist if you are aware and respond correctly. Seek spiritual cleansing for your soul and the space around you, because only you can regain the peace and support you need from your loved ones. When your spiritual connection begins to fade, it may feel as if you're standing at a dead end, where no light shines through. Reflecting on the moments when you felt deeply connected to the universe, those quiet mornings when you prayed or meditated, you'll notice that that feeling slowly disappears, replaced by an indescribable emptiness. Once again, you ask yourself, why don't I feel protected? Why can't I hear the quiet guidance within my soul? This is the first, or perhaps the final, sign that an invisible force is intervening in your spiritual space. This disconnection is not random. It is a subtle process, happening gradually, causing you to slowly lose touch with the positive energies that have nurtured you for so long. When you no longer feel the powerful presence of spiritual strength, that is the sign that someone may be using a malevolent entity to weaken your spirit. This is easy to overlook because it doesn't happen suddenly. Instead, it is a slow decline, like a radio signal becoming distorted, preventing you from catching a clear signal. However, these feelings are the strongest warning signs. Pay attention to yourself and your body's reactions. When you feel you are losing touch with the spiritual entity within you, it is not just a simple loss. It is the moment to ask whether something has intervened in your life, whether an invisible force has entered that you cannot see with your eyes. At this point, spiritual loneliness becomes one of the most subtle weapons these entities use, weakening you from the inside out. The most important thing is that you must not give up. If you notice this disconnection, it is the moment for you to stand up and restore your deep connection with your spiritual energy. Seek peace again, clear your spiritual space, and keep your mind and soul open. Only by maintaining this strong connection can you face and overcome the negative forces trying to dominate you. When your spiritual connection is disrupted, you begin to notice strange signals and bizarre manifestations that you've never encountered before. Your dreams become heavy, filled with images of being chased, imprisoned, or the sense of being trapped in a hopeless situation. These feelings are not ordinary nightmares. They are messages from deep within your subconscious, warning you of an invisible intrusion into your spiritual life. This is when the universe tries to communicate with you through signs and strange events that cannot be explained by reason. Numbers keep appearing before your eyes, unusual animals cross your path when you're facing an important decision, and miraculous coincidences seem impossible to ignore. Everything seems to have its own direction and message, whether you want to deny them or not. This is not mere coincidence. When your spiritual channels are disconnected, your intuition will attempt to send warnings through images and patterns that seem random but carry deep meaning. This is how the universe tries to restore the broken connection. However, the resistance you feel in your heart, the confusion, and discomfort each time you try to return to previous spiritual practices are clear signs that an invisible force is holding you back. This is the disconnection caused by dark entities, preventing you from receiving help from your spiritual energy. This may make you feel spiritually paralyzed. You no longer find joy in the things that once brought you happiness, and you even begin to feel estranged from your own life. But don't let this paralysis become a trap. It is not only a defense mechanism, but also a barrier that prevents you from reclaiming the lost spiritual strength. Pay attention to the images, numbers, and sounds you cannot explain, but that appear at significant moments. These are signals to make you aware that you need to fight back, reconnect, and restore the strong bond with the spiritual energy you once had. Only then can you overcome the forces that are silently intervening in your life. When you face a spiritual disconnection, restoring a deep connection with yourself and the universe requires persistent effort. The first steps may feel difficult, much like trying to exercise a muscle that has been neglected for a long time. But don't worry, as these small, simple exercises will form the solid foundation to help you gradually regain the spiritual strength you've lost. Brief moments of gratitude, short prayers, or simply sitting quietly and listening to your breath in nature are activities that can gradually help you reconnect with your spirituality. Remember, this disconnection is not permanent, even though it may overwhelm you and make you feel uneasy. The important thing is to recognize that this is not a personal failure, but rather an attack from the outside. Becoming aware of this is the first step in reclaiming your spiritual sovereignty. It is like awakening from a trance, where your inner safety and strength have been violated. Once you become aware of this, you are already protecting yourself much more than before you began this journey of reconnection. After clearly identifying the warning signs, you need to take specific steps to protect and purify your spirit. Purification doesn't have to be complicated, but your intention and belief are the most important factors. You don't need to rely on complex rituals or special materials. With simple ingredients like salt water, you can start cleansing your living space, from the hidden corners to the doors and windows, while affirming that you do not welcome negative entities. These small actions, though simple, help you gradually regain control, renew your energy, and protect your spiritual space from intruding forces. Each action, no matter how small, is an important part of the process of healing and protecting your soul. You need to remember that only when you dedicate time to yourself, protect and cleanse your energy, will you be able to rebuild a strong spiritual connection and safeguard your peace and strength for the future. When you face intruding entities and spiritual attacks, remember that spiritual protection is not an option, but a necessity. Sound is one of the most powerful tools in the purification process. As simple as a clap or the ringing of a bell, sound can disrupt the negative energy patterns that dark forces need to maintain their presence. These sounds are not just a form of communication with the external world, but a dialogue with yourself, helping you cleanse your spiritual space and create a peaceful environment. When you face these attacks, do not let anger or the desire for revenge take over your mind. Because once you get caught in this negative cycle, you are merely nurturing the very forces that sought to attack you. Instead of getting drawn into dark emotions, proactively establish strong spiritual boundaries. Visualize and clearly declare that you do not accept any invasion into your space. These protective actions don't need to be complicated, but their effectiveness is immense. Sometimes, simply imagining a protective light surrounding you for a few seconds before leaving the house is enough to prevent negative influences. Every day, take a few minutes to practice these activities, like a spiritual routine to protect yourself. These small steps can make a huge difference in maintaining your peace and inner strength. Maintaining a steady and determined mind will prevent small attacks from growing into more serious issues. These entities cannot retain power over you if you are aware of their interference. Once you recognize their signs and understand how they operate, you have begun the process of spiritual liberation for yourself. Do not ignore the warnings your spirit is sending, as protective solutions are always available. Every step you take in this journey, no matter how small, will help you regain control and protect your mental health. Be strong and wise. You have the right to live in a protected and peaceful space. Your mental health is priceless, and it deserves to be protected at all costs.